How's the family? Everybody's good?
Family's good. We just had we spent the whole day just outside running around, had the little fake water park with the sprinkler. Had my daughter in the little pool and stuff running around, so it was cool. We actually just got done 30 minutes ago.
Okay. That's what's up, man.
Hey, from Australia?
Huh? You said you going? Oh, you saw somebody from Australia.
Yeah, somebody compared us to Teddy Riley. We can't. Hey,
no Teddy Riley.
Get our shit together, all right?
That's it. Hey,
I will not be deemed an old head right now.
Hey, we good. No more Teddy Riley. I don't even want to hear it. They don't have to worry. We're not going to have any more of those tonight. We done with that. We are done with that, man. But as I was saying before, man, I appreciate you getting on this podcast, and so that we can be able to just sit and talk, man. I just think this is just the perfect timing, with this whole coronavirus going around this country right now. It's an uproar. It affected my family. I had 2 family members that passed away from it, man. So it's definitely real.
Sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, man. That's real, man.
Yeah, man. It's funny because I was actually Dr. Shavers might be on here. I'm doing some work with him, but we were just talking about sort of starting a collective around that idea of just cutting through the grass and essentially through the weeds of the jokes that are coming out with COVID and everything. Because whenever you're on social media, it seems like I don't know. It just seems like everything is filtered through a comedy lens.
Yeah.
So it's hard for actual good information, quality information, to peek through. So we're just trying to figure out ways to cut through the shit and the jokes and stuff, and get down to how you can mentally and physically prepare yourself to take on the new world, essentially, post COVID, while we're in it and whatnot. So
yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I just hope that everything gets back to normal as soon as possible, and people are taking it seriously and being safe. I know they're just opening up different places, like Georgia got opened up recently, and then they opened up some other places. I just hope people are just taking this seriously. It's not a joke,
Yeah, and it has to be taken seriously, but I feel like we've been, Americans, and specifically Americans, have been so coddled and somewhat of a golden age that when some real shit happens, we really don't want to believe that it can affect us. Because, the poverty line is vast, but being in America, you're a little bit coddled in some other places of the world that it can really mess you up. So yeah. I just hope we get through the jokes and everything and actually move forward and potentially get past this.
Yeah, I agree, man. But like I said, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, coming on here and being part of this my podcast. Life after sports, and I've been sitting on it for a while, and I'm like, Kevin, it's time to go ahead and press the button and move forward with this, because it's something that I've been wanting to do for a minute. I'm still trying to work out the kinks, but I appreciate the time and just got a couple questions for you. Wanted to get your input. I mean, when you look at the sports industry, we're going on with the NFL draft right now, watching that last night, and just seeing these guys getting ready to get into the league. And it's great. This is actually like a big moment, big stage for everybody. Their families are happy. I'm watching the TV. I see their family ecstatic. People jumping off the couch, all type of stuff. And I'm like, man, this is great. But I want them to know that this is just one step in, and they still got to get ready to go and do their job, man, because it's a business. It's really a business.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your thoughts, man. What's your thoughts on the draft so far?
Man, I watched last night. Is the second day started already? I assume it has on East Coast time, but I'm happy to be a fan of it now. I'm happy to be.
Okay.
I don't know. I was never that big I was big into the draft, obviously, when I was playing, especially when I started seeing my boys from Oregon go. I remember watching, T.J. Ward get drafted second round. I remember watching guys like Jarris Byrd and Walter Thurman, and even my year was, Casey Matthews and whatnot. So, I look at it, there's 5% jealousy in there, because I'm like, damn, my name has never been called and is never going to be called ever again. That was my one shot. But to see these kids, I should say grown men, reach their dream, You know, it's cool that these kids have sort of grown up in the social media era because, you know, I've been seeing a handful of tweets and photos and whatnot from kids that were drafted now talking 6-7 years ago, like, I can't wait to be drafted. I can't wait to, you know, hug Goodell. I can't wait to make my mom's dream come true. And they tweeted, it's like their oral history is on display. And the fact that they're living out those dreams from, you know, 6, 7, 10 years ago, it's a dream come true. But, you know, those guys got to realize that they're now going into a machine. It's not hanging with your boys and the party life and good time that you think it's going to be. Yeah, there's time for that, but man, I remember even my first year getting into the season and asking a veteran, like, yo, after practice, like, yo, I want to go grab some pizza, go hang out, and they're straight up like, bro, I got to pick my kids up from the babysitting. You know, it's a grown man's game, and the sooner they realize that and get a handful of mentors and whatnot to teach them the game, but also teach them, you know, how to maneuver when you're not on the field, then that's when they can definitely ascend.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, I'm looking there and I'm like, man, this is the perfect time to hear this type of stuff. And coming from you, you're a vet. You've been in the league for 7 years, and many people don't know that you were a Super Bowl champ as well. People don't know that.
Yeah.
You don't brag it. For some, you don't brag it. You don't really talk about it that much. You know, but you were on it. Huh?
I've never been the type. It's like I did it, and in the past, I'm focusing on what's coming now instead of. I think I probably only worn it maybe half a dozen times, if that. You know, once I got it back in 2012, it's about my ring I'm talking about. I gave it to my grandfather and told him to keep it safe. And at one point, I didn't see it for like 2 or 3 years because I'm like, I'm trying to get another one. I can't keep focusing on, oh, look at this thing I was a part of, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot. It's, I'm happy with the experience, but.
Yeah. No, it's a great experience. There's a lot of people playing and they've never had the opportunity to be in that position. So it's glad for you to be in that position and not just. Some people get stuck in that position and they stay there. They never think about the next. What's the next thing? I'm still playing. I want to get that next ring. Or I'm playing. Or I'm finished. What's the next? So with that being said, talk a little bit about your journey. You were undrafted.
Yeah.
You were undrafted.
Oh man, it's interesting because I was the lockout year, and for those of you that don't know, this was the last CBA 10 years ago, which the NFL actually just went through just now. But usually after the NFL draft, that's free agency. That's when any team can call you and say, hey, although we didn't draft you, we want you to come out for our rookie minicamp. Well, my year, it was radio silent. So after that last draft pick was picked, you literally couldn't talk to anybody for 3.5, 4 months.
Wow.
Paying high school kids for like $30 an hour, living at my grandfather's house, just not really knowing like if I was even going to get called when the lockout would end. Lockout ended up ending, and I got a call from, Giants, Cowboys, Arizona, Denver, and I forget, it was one other team. And I was actually going to go to Arizona because for me it was like, it's 2 hours from home, my family can come, like it's a West Coast team, it'd be cool. But as soon as I told them, I was like, yo, I want to call my mom, talk about it with her, and then hit you guys back. Not 2 minutes later, I called them back to say I'm accepting the job. They said the position's already filled. So literally 2 minutes, they were like, here's a job offer. Actually, no, never mind. So it actually came down to the Giants and the Cowboys. And I don't remember who called me for the Cowboys, but they came in like a used car salesman. They were like, oh, Spencer, you should wear the star and be a part of America's team and blah, blah, blah. And, I did my homework on what teams needed an outside linebacker at this time, and they did need one, but it was just the way they approached me that I didn't really care for. But the Giants called, and it was a linebacker coach, Jim Herman, who coached me for 4 years all 4 years of the Giants there. And he just had a conversation. He was just like, yo, we think that you could do some good for us. We need a linebacker that can, run with receivers and guard running backs out of the backfield and, stick his head in on the run. And just based off of that conversation of just sitting with me and talking with me, not trying to sell me on them, I decided to go with the Giants. And I think it was one of the better decisions of my life.
Wow. Players don't normally get that opportunity to, be able to shop from different teams and be able to see what was the better decision for them. And sometimes the other way, like this is their only opportunity and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of agents will tell you after the 5th round of the draft, although you want to hear your name called, that 6th and 7th round, even sometimes 5th rounders, it's as good as going undrafted. Because although you were drafted, your name was called, you can get cut just like anybody else come fall camp. So, I realized going into the draft that I was going to be like a late rounder, possibly undrafted. So when I didn't get drafted, it wasn't the worst thing in the world to me. I was hurt because I had teams that were calling me saying like, yo, we like you. We might draft you. You're on the board with us. We'll see. And then my name was never called. But in hindsight, looking back at it, the fact that I could choose where I wanted to go and that I did my homework on which teams needed outside linebackers. At one point Denver called and they were like, yo, we want you to come join us for a rookie minicamp because we like what you can do. But I'm looking, I think Von Miller was my class. They drafted another linebacker and they had like 3 or 4 other like rookie or first year linebackers. And I'm thinking like, if I go there, it's a traffic jam. Like I can't, there's already people there that have, interest with the coaches that have played with them under a year or whatnot that, those coaches trust those players. If I go there, the chance of me making a team is slim. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, based on your 7 years, the ups and downs, look, we became close when you came here to Miami. And I'll never forget, man, I was doing work with Koa Misi and Olivia, some other guys. And it was a charity event, man. And I asked you, I was like, hey, Spencer, would you like to come? And it was a no-brainer. It was like, man, I'm there. I'll come. And I appreciate it. I'll never forget that day because I know a lot of times throughout the season, guys, there's a lot of things going on with their family, just having the time to give back is just different. So I appreciate that. Based in your career, the ups and downs of your career, what is your mental outlook on life just from you, spending time in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and shout out to Brian Banks on here. He popped in. We've had the chance to correspond a few times. But, just my perspective on playing in my career and such, it was like I knew I was never going to be the, out of this world Hall of Fame linebacker that's the Ray Lewis or the B Wags out in Seattle or whatnot. And, I worked myself to get into that position, but it just wasn't in my cards. And I think my greatest power is just being self-aware of knowing my situation, knowing the situation. So just looking at the landscape, knowing that, being an undrafted guy, playing predominantly on the East Coast when I'm a West Coast guy, I can be out of this game at any moment. And it'll literally happen like that. My 3rd year playing, the Giants tendered me. And for those of you that know, like a tender is kind of like a poor man's franchise tag. So they're literally saying, we like you. You're an undrafted guy. We like you. We think you can essentially still play for us, but we're going to reward you and give you a slightly better contract that's still attached to somewhat of your rookie contract. So in my 3rd year, I was making more money in my 3rd year than all 2 years combined.
Wow.
I'm sorry, my 4th year, I was making more money than all 3 years combined before that.
Okay.
And I was the most unhappy I've ever been playing football. And making the most money I've ever made before, being the most unhappy playing football I've ever been was sort of a mind fuck because I realized like, I'm living in New York. The view out of my place is like the Manhattan skyline. Like, by all accounts, I've succeeded at football. Being walking around the city in my head, being like, I'm starting linebacker for the New York Giants. Why am I unhappy?
Yeah.
And that just led me to, honestly, it led me to just start peeking into what else was out there, beyond the field, whether it's business, whether it was creative, just, turning those Monday nights for those that know, Monday nights and all of Tuesdays, the NFL off days. So that's essentially our weekend. So I would turn those Monday nights and those Tuesdays into like networking opportunities. I know when we met, that was probably on a Monday night or a Tuesday.
Yep.
But just anything to like plug into that community that I was in, be it New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, or down in Miami. It was like, if I'm in and of this team, I'm here. Let me see what opportunities I can find for myself in these cities. And I've carried that mentality since college. So, as much as I was playing and such, I was building my resume off the field to the point where the stuff off the field started to manifest, which led me to retire.
Okay. And you kind of answered that next question, was like, how do you deal with obstacles? And you pretty much went into it talking about how you dealt with it,
I mean, just communication. I feel like on, both good and bad for myself that year, that was the first year that, my then girlfriend, now wife, moved out to New York with me. And, I've always been wanting to kind of be open and honest about my feelings, and especially with her, letting her know, like, I don't feel right today, or mentally, like, maybe I should go see a movie by myself, or we just need to talk things through or whatnot. Not just like me and her never really got in fights like that at all. It was just more so me talking through things of stuff that's going on in my own head. Because we all know that. We've all been there where it's like you have an idea or a thought that's just jumbled in your head, and as soon as you talk to somebody about it, either the answer or like some deviated path from it just naturally comes through that communication. So me and her have always had that open line of communication to where we trust each other with our own feelings and vulnerability. So she was a big part in getting me out of that rut of just like, there was some days that she would have to literally like kick me out of the bed because I'm like, I'm tired of this shit. I'm sore. I don't want to be here right now. Like, I'm ready to retire. Like, let's do something else. And this is before even All-American. I started having these thoughts, my 6th year playing. But just communication, again, both good and bad. I'm talking about a lot of the players that I was talking to who sort of cry for help. Not in that sense, but just wanting to have an honest conversation with somebody that's been through the ringer like me when it comes to like playing in the big leagues with it. It was like, I assume that you maybe have had these feelings before. Can we talk and you just hear me out, like, open and honest?
Yeah.
And a lot of responses were just like machismo responses, like, play as long as you can. Like, you'll never be as happy as when you're in the league. You'll never make as much money as you are right now in the league. And I'm like, damn, I just want to find somebody I can talk to that's been where I've been, especially in these situations, that I can have that conversation with. But really a lot of that came down to, my brother, my uncle and my dad, even my mom, but most of all, absolutely my wife.
That's what's up, man. I like that. That was like your outlet to talking with them. They were the closest to you. And that leads to my next question, talking about identity crisis. I mean, do you believe that many professional athletes suffer from identity crisis when it comes to their career coming to an end, or just in general?
I feel like every athlete, no matter who you are, suffers with it. I mean, look at guys like Michael Phelps, who's arguably, one of the greatest athletes to ever grace this earth in his sport. And, he has bouts with depression and anxiety and just not being fulfilled. When you put so much into a sport, since, I played flag football, some form of football since I was 3 years old. So to grow up with that in my family, in my blood, with my, my older brother playing in college and getting injured, my dad coaching at the college level, 2 of my uncles being high school coaches, my high school coaches, being a ball boy since I was 4 years old. Like, I've been in and of football culture since before I could even think for myself. So walking away from that and that normality of, especially on a chemical level, come April to June, and then July through January, like you're hitting all those levels of testosterone and adrenaline and dopamine and all that stuff consistently. And when you walk away from that, like your levels are never peaking. You can never do anything to recreate that football moment of you know, being on the field, looking Marshawn Lynch in the eye and like knowing you got to tackle him because nobody else is around. Like you just can't recreate those situations. So just on a chemical level, your mind and body is fucked up.
Yeah.
So going through it, like I've done it, I've gone through it myself. I feel like I still go through it. I feel like that's something that you can never really shed yourself from. Like you can talk to the most successful people that have ever transitioned from the sport. You know, you got the current ones like Tony Romo and the $100 million man and Michael Strahan. Like they're probably waking up in the morning like, I still trying to figure out who I am at the end of the day.
Yeah. And people think that when you have the money, like, oh, I figure out who I am. Sometimes money could take it to a whole nother level where you're like, nah, I don't have a sense of purpose for some.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's true. It's absolutely true.
My next question for you is talking about your transition process. When did your transition process started to take place? And then when you knew like, okay, it's life after sports, and I need to. There's something that triggered, and you was just started to just be in a mental space.
Early on, I'm talking maybe my redshirt sophomore year in college.
Wow.
I was fortunate enough to have one of my first ever mentors that were outside of my family was Oregon's nutritionist James Harris, and I openly praise him because at the time, being an 18, 19-year-old kid at this point, just committing to being an econ major, he saw that in me and was like, yo, you're making moves around Eugene in a very unique way. Like, I want to help foster this. So it'll be little things like he would give me a book to read and be like, yo, you have a month to read a book. Let's talk about it once you get done. This guy owns a business down the street. I want you to sit down and talk with him because I want you to learn how he runs his day-to-day business in his marketing company or his restaurant or whatever. So my last 2.5 years at Oregon, I was doing a lot of internships. I was doing job shadowing experiences. I was grabbing coffees, and it became a game of like how many business cards I can get, and just learning how to network. I think that was the first time I've ever really worked and put myself out there. So taking that into the NFL. Every offseason, I did something new in that accord. And, for those of you that have aspirations that are watching this, looking to, ascend to the NBA, NFL, MLB, what have you, professionally, I'd say right now, if you have the time, and we all got the time for in the pandemic and the quarantine, it's like dive into all those hobbies and stuff that interest you, but also like dive into stuff that you may not realize you like. Yeah. Like I always say, my most favorite internship was being a marketing intern for Quest Diagnostics out of New Jersey. And, I'm still close to Richard, who's technically my mentor during that era and still is in a great capacity. But, it's their Quest Diagnostics at that time was like, they still are, but like they were a drug testing, like medical collecting company. So I'm sitting here like, why would I even like working with you guys? But once I got into the company, I was asked to help sort of build out their Blueprint for Athletes platform, which was a biomarker testing platform for athletes and just, people with fitness goals.
Wow.
And, I had my office, or I would say my little cubicle. I had the slacks, the J. Crew plaid on, the Jason Bateman plaid, I call it. But I was just like, yo, this ain't bad. Like, the other side isn't bad. And I feel like that was the internship for me that it really clicked because, and I remember like it was yesterday, it was like a Wednesday or Thursday. It's after the season, so it had to be like February or March or something. I'm staying back in Jersey doing an internship after the season. And, I get off work at like 5:30, go to the store, grab some food, grab like a 6-pack of beer. And I'm posted up in my living room, like made dinner, had like 3 or 4 beers. I'm sitting like, yo, this shit ain't bad. Like, I could have a full day's work, come home, do this, fall asleep, and wake up and get right back at it without having to worry about, like, oh, I got to hit that 350-pound dude in 6 hours, you know? So yeah, that was the first time to when I remember there's been a couple times when, like, I was getting yelled at by coaches or whatnot. I'm like, I don't need this.
You're like, my body's on the line.
Man, I'm like, I got a cubicle in Madison, New Jersey right now. Like, I'm good.
Oh my God. Oh man. Well, what about your teammates? People that you were around at that time? Do you believe that they were maybe professionally struggling? Because I mean, that the locker room talk stays in the locker room. Guys talk about different things. But do you believe that professional athletes do struggle with the transition process, like of figuring out what that next step may be like after sports?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to think about it in terms of achieving your goal. You know, a lot of people, when they think of achieving their goal, you know, the other side of that goal is like retiring and riding off into the sunset. And I did it, I'm the champion, or I landed the $100 million deal, or whatever your business goal out there. On the other side of that is retirement or the easy life. But for NFL players, you know, that's highly front loaded. So you can reach your dream at 20, 21 years old, play a long NFL 10 years, get out and you're 30, 31, and now you potentially only live the first 30 of your life. So I think a lot of that, you know, who am I without football, without sports, that transition period, a lot of guys make the mistake of saying, I've achieved my greatest goal and now it's time to ride off into the sunset. But that sunset is the equivalent of you just on the couch drinking and or smoking or just not doing anything, watching Netflix. And now you're wondering, you know, what is life at this point? Because you, for so long, you've been conditioned to achieve a goal, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's, you know, going up against like your best friend that you came up with in the league, you want to dominate them, or winning that big game, Super Bowl, make it to the playoffs, whatever. When you stop setting goals for yourself to achieve, what's next? Like, rigor mortis at that point.
Yeah, no, and I read a couple articles based on what you said in regards to some guys, they go through depression. They go through all these different things that they turn to because they're just not certain on what to do next. You know, now being able to, now I have to wake up and take my kids to school where I didn't have to do that. I had a nanny, my wife took it, my girlfriend. Now I got to get up and actually do this. I got to play with my kids. I got to take them and play sports outside, you know, like activities. And before that, I mean, you probably did it, but real to a T. Now you have more time, and I think that, because look, I've been in it, man. Like, not been in it playing, but I've been getting the phone calls from guys like, Kev, come chill. I'm like, no, you need to chill with your family, man. Spend some family time. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. It's funny, and I've always been that person. Like, you know, there've been times even just being around my teammates. Like, I love my dog. I love them from the bottom of my heart. I got four of my groomsmen were from football relationships. You know, so like, I love y'all, but if I don't have to see y'all every day, I'm not gonna see y'all every day. Like, shout out to, you know, one of my closest friends, Henry Hanoski. You know, there was a moment in fall camp to where we had been together for like legit 15 hours of the day, and we get back to the hotel in fall camp, and he's knocking on my door like, let's hang out. And I'm like, bro, I don't want to see you. Like, I'm seeing y'all. Like, I want to be by myself. So it's just like that mentality when, especially just that locker room mentality of, you know, you're around, you know, at any given point, 40 to 60 guys, and it's the energy, it's the connection, it's being a part of something. So when you remove yourself from that, whether good or bad, you just naturally don't know what to do. Like, I've been in the league, I've 7 years, played college, you know, the whole nine. I hate working out by myself.
Yeah.
Just because it's like you feed off of other people. You feed off of the community. Yep. Like, so now when I'm working out by myself, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm like, all right, as long as I just sweat, this is straight.
I just need to do something and then get out of here.
can somebody please come coach me? Because I've been coached in the weight room for 20 years, and now I'm trying to do it by myself. And I'm like, damn, I really didn't retain none of this.
Yeah, you're right. It's different. It's different. It's definitely different, man. And I see it from a different spectrum. Now, I wanted to. We talked about football, talked about the draft. Now, I want to get into the business, to the nitty gritty. All right, things that people sometimes don't know, but they need to know about this, man. About your investment funds. I want to know how did you get the idea to think about doing an investment fund and inviting other professional athletes into that circle?
Well, actually, it started because I was in a circle of professional athletes that only talked about tech and pitch decks and sharing connections and whatnot. And it was a Slack group chat, and it's still active, guys like Russell Okun, shout out to Ryan Mundy, just Derek Morgan, shout out to a lot of those, a lot of people and players I would say are just like-minded in our pursuits. But it was sort of a word of mouth thing to where my guy Ryan Mundy, texted me one day and said, hey, are you interested in, investments and tech and just being part of this network? I said, yeah. So he connected me to the group chat. And immediately, as soon as I jumped in, it was like, one guy's meeting with Uber to talk about investing. Another guy's meeting with Hyperloop to invest. Another one's meeting with the owner of the Atlanta Falcons and wants to know if any of us want to come out to Atlanta and have dinner with him to just talk, So, immediately I just got consumed into this life. And I've always, being an econ major, I've always been fascinated with how the world works in terms of the numbers and the money and how just money moves. So it just opened my eyes. And after being probably in that chat for maybe about a year, and learning how to vet things on my own accord and building out mentors and stuff that if a deal came to me, I can send to them to vet. Me thinking like, oh, this is a good deal, but sending to them. And they're like, actually, these are the questions you need to ask. And if they say this, then don't do it. So just building up my business acumen for that. Yeah. But after about a year, a handful of us were looking at a deal together. Separately, I would say. Together, but separately.
Yeah.
And I hit a few of the ones that just kept bringing it up. I was like, yo, instead of just doing this like individually, like, why don't we create an investment fund that's, primarily with NFL athletes or just professional athletes in general? I can run and manage it or whatnot. And we'll use our power. We'll use our influence, and that actually opened up a lot of doors for us, just knowing that a fund primarily comprised of NFL players were interested in a startup or, a Series A or, anything like that. It got us into a lot of great doors. I haven't done it as much over the past year because, really diving into All-American and making that my career now, my passion. But I don't shy away from looking up deals and vetting things. And if I see one that's good, I send it to the guys to say, hey, what are your thoughts? But I still actively vet deals and, give insight where needed.
That's what's up. And it's great. It's a great that you were able to have people who were like-minded in that same circle. A lot of times I hear it from other athletes, it's there, they do their job, and that's pretty much it. Conversation, everybody's a little bit different, and the fact that you were able to find guys or talk to guys that maybe were on the same path in regards to talking about longevity in careers that's outside the league, I think that's something that's really a great thing.
Yeah, I think it's naturally when you're in the locker room, you gravitate to the people that are most like you or came from similar situations. That's like you always see the DBs together, jumping on couches and stuff, and the D line is always the funniest group in the entire locker room, to where the offensive line, like half of those dudes are hunting when they're not playing football. It's just like you gravitate to the people.
Hunting? They're hunting.
Yeah, offensive linemen on every team. There's like 3 or 4 hunters on every team.
Wow.
Like, do not fuck with offensive linemen because they will shoot you dead if you come to a grievance.
Oh my God.
But it was just that. It was like, especially going to Beverly Hills at such a young age, that kind of helped me talk to people across the lines, and just be interested in other ethnicities and cultures and happenings. So it was nothing for me to, get into the hijinks of what we're talking about, like, kind of popping around to the different pockets of the locker room. And I think that transitioned well into business, because it became, okay, you are helping run a medical testing company. I know nothing about that, but let me see what it's about, So at the end of the day, it goes back to what we were talking about in terms of just like getting out of the rut on things. It's like, open communication and just asking questions.
Yeah. Man, talking about just the business IQ and the things that you've done, I love what the Miami Dolphins organization, and I really just want to say they two names, because obviously that's who I know personally, Caleb Thornhill and my boy Eves, going with the Dolphins Combine. I just think they've been doing an awesome job with that. And share your experience with, because I know you were up here on a speaking panel not too long ago.
Yes. Yeah, I interviewed Matt Carter for about an hour in front of, I'd say, about 30 of the Miami Dolphins. And this is something that, again, Caleb Thornhill has sort of spearheaded for the past, I'd say, 4 years now. But, years ago, he started this platform. I think it was the first year I got to Miami. He was kicking around the idea of starting a Dolphins business combine. And this was essentially a week program to where he would fly the Dolphins players, anybody that wanted to sign up for it, fly to New York, because the owner of the Dolphins, Stephen Ross, his headquarters, where he lives, everything is up in New York. He's the creator of Hudson Yards. But it was just literally a week of meeting with CEOs and Fortune 500 companies and doing walkthroughs and business deep dives, and like a Shark Tank period to where, the teams, they would break the team up into like 5 individual teams, give us an idea, and we spend the whole day building out the idea and then end up pitching it to the entire room. Luckily, my team won the inaugural one, and I was a spokesman for it. I mean, I'm
okay,
Chip. The cards were loaded, though. It was like me, I want to say Derek Morgan and Dominican Sue, so like Marshall Newhouse, I think, too. Like we were equipped to like run the table on it, so it was actually like quite unfair. But yeah, it was that. It was such a dope experience, because I had never seen somebody create a program for athletes in that capacity, because I've always been an advocate for the NFL should be an incubator to tech and to entertainment and to everything, instead of when you get out the league, you're like, oh, we can hook you up with like the UPS job, or we can help build your resume. I'm like, and not to say like UPS isn't a good job to have. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. But when you have billionaires coming to the games to watch us play, it's nothing for the team, the owners of the team, to say, hey, billionaire, I want you to meet our players, and I want you to talk to our players and just teach them a little bit about what you're doing, What you're doing. It's just why not? So Caleb really took that to heart, and he created this program, and they're still going strong, and I'm an advocate for it. I'm an asset to them. Whenever they need me, I'm out there helping in any capacity. And I just hope other teams either adopt what Caleb has done, or bring Caleb in a consulting capacity to help build out their program for around their city. So I think any city that an NFL team is playing in, there's such a vast network to plug those players in, to be part of that community, in both community and business, that it's like, why not?
Why not? It's needed. It's like, why not do it? And I think eventually that they would have it where each team is doing it. If not, I mean, Caleb, I know you won't stay with the Dolphins, but still go ahead and see if you could be able to.
Nah, get out of there. Get out of there. Caleb, if you're here, if you're watching this, get out of there and build your empire. You build your empire. You got it. You got the keys. Oh, my God.
You're right. Build your empire. You're right. But talking about that, man, what is your part in this world in regards to philanthropy? You could talk about what your business is doing, what you've been doing personally.
Yeah. I mean, for my business, obviously, like, All-American is by all means the number one That's the main thing. And I learned that from Matt Carter, is like, keep the main thing the main thing. You can do side projects, you can have other things, but whatever's bringing in, whatever's feeding your family, putting food on the table, and the thing that you're most passionate about, keep that the main thing. So All-American is absolutely that. Not to say that I'm not developing other projects, both scripted, unscripted. I have, 2 features potentially in the works. So really trying to turn this into a career. I don't want to be the one-hit wonder. That was the guy that had All-American. I want All-American to be just the first credit on my IMDb page, So that's the first thing. The second thing that I'm most proud of, too, is about 3 years ago, I started a coffee shop in my neighborhood called Hilltop Coffee and Kitchen. We have 2 locations. One is in Windsor Hills, California, sort of like a suburb of Inglewood. The other one is in downtown Inglewood. And if those of you guys are aware of it, that's the coffee shop that, kind of came out that said it's Issa Rae's coffee shop, where she kind of premiered it as hers. But she came on when we were, essentially opening up our second one. And it's so great to have her as part of the team, because just the exposure that she brings and being of this neighborhood, it's been such a great partnership. So yeah, that's one thing that, our mission is to keep this concept in food deserts, in underserved communities. So, hopefully, like, you're not going to see us in Santa Monica or Brentwood or Hollywood. Like, we want to stay in Inglewood. We want to stay in South Central. We want to stay in, Watts and the Covinas. And, we want to be in those areas that don't necessarily get, quality fast casual food. So our third location is opening up. Actually, the pandemic hit, but we were supposed to open up late last month. And we have plans for a fourth one, but I don't know if I can talk about that one right now. But yeah, those are the 2 main things in terms of, philanthropy. Doing a lot of work with KIPP Public Schools. It's a public school system out in South Central. They have so many locations, but just helping them build our programs, helping them, get resources and just, bringing my network into South Central, holding a handful of, Black male summits, because a lot of the young men a part of that school, essentially when you're a part of KIPP Public School, they're with you from kindergarten to when you go off to college. And even in college, they provide you with mentors and accessories for college and whatnot. So a lot of these kids, it's the first of their family, first of the, any generation within their family going to college. So they don't really have that support system. So when they come back here for, spring break, summer break, trying to get them together and just be open and honest and vulnerable about, feelings and whatnot, because a lot of these kids are going about it by themselves with no support system. So just, kind of being that parachute for them as I can be. So doing a lot of work with them, Hilltop Coffee and Kitchens, doing a lot of stuff, especially during the pandemic, just providing providing food to churches and hospitals and schools and whatnot. We partner with Beyond Meat to distribute upwards of, part of the collective to distribute upwards of I think 1 million meals during the pandemic. So yeah, it's just doing a lot of things. I'm never really at the in your face when it comes to philanthropy and whatnot, because at the end of the day,
I already know you behind the scenes, man.
That's just how I am. I don't need to hand somebody something and have a photographer there catching me handing it to someone so I can post it and be like, hey, look at the good deed I did. The good deed is between me and the person or me and the company that I'm helping. The world doesn't necessarily need to know it. So yeah, I think I was heavily influenced by, there's a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And
let me write that down. What's the name of it?
The book is called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
Why should white guys have all the fun?
Yeah, and it's pretty much about a guy. It's a true story. It's about a guy named Reginald F. Lewis that brokered the first $1 billion Wall Street deal. Black guy. He was to this day, I believe he's still the only person to ever get admitted into Harvard Law without applying. And the big deal that the book is talking about, or spends a lot of time talking about, is the Beatrix food deal that he did, to where essentially he presented himself as his own company's lawyer for the entire year and a half it took to buy Beatrice Foods, which was an international food company that had locations all over the world. And when the paperwork was all done, Beatrix Food was like, happy that we sold. Can we meet the owners of the company? And he was like, yo, you've been talking to him for the past 18 months. And they didn't want to, they tried to do some backhanded shit to try to take the company from him because they thought he did some, something illegal or whatnot. But he was just so stout in his paperwork and his approach and everything to where you couldn't do it. But what he did a lot in the shadows was a lot of philanthropy, a lot of civil rights work. But he's not necessarily known for that, but still his impact on the world and the people that he's helped still reigns true today. So I would love to tell that story one day. I inquired about telling that story one day. There is some movement with a story and with the rights with it, but anybody out there that's listening, I would love to work on that project if possible.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep my ears to the street. So if I hear anybody in my box actually say, man, I heard Spence talk about this story, I'm going to send them to you.
I mean, listen, I'll sweep the floor. I'll go grab coffee. I'll do whatever possible to just be a part of telling that story because those are the type of stories that we just need to hear. Me personally, I'm tired of hearing the police brutality stories and the slavery stories and whatnot. There's so much more to us and so much in our history that we can focus on, except for, the era of slavery and, the era that we're currently living in, which is police brutality and whatnot. So I just want to get to telling just a full spectrum of stories. And I feel like that's one that can definitely open a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're definitely using your gift. I can tell you that. Definitely using your gift. I was trying not to ask you any questions on All-American, but I'm looking at the questions and people are asking questions. What's up? They looking for
we being trifling because they are asking only All-American questions, and we're like, no, we good.
Hey, that's all they asked. So you saw I didn't have no questions for you in regards to that. We talking about business and we talking about sports. I didn't ask about the All-American, but
by all means.
I know that people are going to ask, well, how much is that story of you, Spence? They want to know how much is that, and I'm going to tell them. I ain't going to tell them. I'm going to let you tell them. You tell them about that.
I would say a lot of the stories are absolutely rooted in truth. When it comes to, and a lot of you guys out there got to understand this. It's when you're building a TV show that has to appeal to, the 10-year-old white girl and the 65-year-old black man, you kind of have to weave these stories and kind of take some creative liberty with doing it, with crafting a TV show that can capture so many different categories across the board. So yes, there's some things that we fabricated. There's some things that was okay, this is what really happened. Now let's change it 20% to make it more cinematic, to make people actually gravitate to it. Because, a lot of moments in my past and everybody's past, you think it may play out cinematically and be beautiful, but when you actually write it down on a piece of paper, you're like, oh, this actually wasn't that good, So again, a lot of the stories are rooted in truth, but we just allow the writers, and such a great writers room, and that's where I never want to take credit for writing episodes and whatnot, because we have 10 writers in our writers room that are just absolute snipers when it comes to their pen, on hitting on all the accords, from music selection with our music supervisor, Madonna Wade Reed, to our showrunner, Nkechi Okoro Carroll. These are the professionals, and this show could not go without me trusting them to deliver a quality story. If I put it all on my shoulders, I would crumble, because at the end of the day, I'm only 2, maybe 3 years into this industry, so I don't know what I don't know right now, but I'm actively learning from these professionals every single day, and it's just been a joy. It's just been a joy seeing them take my story and allow me to be an asset within this world and create something that, could be a generational show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely love your work. I know I spoke to you a couple weeks ago, and I said, hey, I'm about to binge watch this, and I binge watched it to the T. Like, you had
Yeah.
when I was done, I was texting you like, Spence, when is the next one? I'm waiting. All right, so
You know, it's funny because I've had some friends that, you know, they've been like, oh, we about to start it. And they'll start asking one question and two questions. And I start thinking, like, they're going to hit me on episode 8, right after Sean dies. Like, yo, don't fuck me up like that again. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, like, yo, man, why'd you have to do that to Sean? And I know it's always coming. So it's been funny. It's been so funny and interesting understanding, like, how people are taking in the show. And just seeing the theories behind, like, people are scouring my Instagram, my Twitter, like my wife's Twitter, like friends from college that I haven't talked to in years. They're texting me like, yo, somebody just hit me with a question asking, like, is Asher based off of me and stuff. So it's just funny, just like riding the wave with it. And that's why I don't really like to answer any intricate questions about the show, because, you know, I always come from the standpoint of, you know, ride that wave of the show.
absolutely.
Ride the highs and lows of the show, the emotions of it. Because if I were to tell you something is wrong with it, or something isn't true, or changed just enough to make it unbelievable in real life, now you're going to start picking apart every single thing on that show, and you're not riding the wave of it. Like, be in it, be of it, like, be frustrated with it, be happy with it, cry with it, laugh at it. Like, it was hilarious when I saw people getting on Daniel for that hitch route, and, like, that's my boy, but, like, he hasn't grown up in American football culture, so he's even still learning a lot of those football moves and whatnot. But as much as I'm behind the scenes of it, I'm a fan of fans' reactions to the show, and as much as I can, I try to have that moment with them without necessarily, you know, taking off the veil of what's true and what's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I appreciate you just being on here. My last question, just because we may have some current professional athletes that are watching, we may have some college students that are watching this that are in sports. We may have high school students that are watching. I would just want you to if there was one advice that you could be able to give that circle of athletes on just based on your story of life and your experience in the league and what you're doing now in your endeavors, what would that one advice be?
Man, I would say, and this is honestly, this is at any level. This is prep, high school, college, NFL, beyond any sport, anybody actually is. Just spend some time away from what you're deeming to be your sport, or what you're striving to get to in terms of NFL, MLB, NBA, because it's kind of sad that in our community, you know, we know the numbers of, you know, how many people make it to the league, make it professionally. It's less than, 1% across the board, but you have 80, 90% of our youth saying, I'm going to be the one to get through that. And I think at the end of the day, it's just taking sports and entertainment off of that pedestal that we put it on, and propping up a lot of these other careers and jobs that, you know, you can be an industry professional in that field. So in saying that, it's just a lot of those athletes that I'm talking to, dive into those hobbies, dive into the interests, dive into anything that just brings you joy, especially right now with the pandemic that we have going on. Now's the time, and I don't know if we'll ever have a moment to where the world just shuts down. And I've told this to a lot of people. A lot of times I've spoken in this capacity. Is like, this is a perfect time to start to understand who you are, away from everybody else, away from the world.
Yeah.
And just spend some time in silence. Just like literally turn off your phone, like turn off the TV, and just sit in your own thoughts. Because for so long we've been taught, like, go, look at your phone every 2 seconds, be connected to what's happening in the right now, to where you rarely have a moment thinking your own actual thoughts, and I'm a prisoner of that myself. Like, I wake up in the morning, and sometimes before my eyes even open, I'm naturally grabbing my phone, So, I got to work on that myself. But when it comes to this moment in time, the advice I would give is just dive into that creative side of you. If you have a hobby that you've been putting off, go back into it. Why not? Like we got the time. I always say it's 2020. Like we got time to do what we want now.
Yeah, we really do. Look, Spence. I'm even fasting this week. I've been taking fasting, walking at a cemetery in the morning. Something different that I ain't never did before. And
you're gonna start floating by the end of the week.
You said what?
I said you're gonna start floating by the end of next week.
Hey man, just doing something different, man. Doing something different. So, but man, I just want to say I appreciate you with your time being on our show. I mean, there was great questions. You had great responses, and I hope our listeners had an opportunity to really absorb everything that you were telling them. And I appreciate you for being our first special guest on this show. And look, we'll see you again. Better believe that. We're going to see you on this podcast.
Yeah. Hey man, whenever my friends are building something, you know, and going after their dreams and whatnot, I'm there to help. Like it's nothing for me to jump on a call, jump on a chat with you for an hour or so and get perspective. Because if you know a handful of people get some ideas out of this, or do what I said and dive into that creativity and just look to the frontier of what else could be out there, it's a success.
Absolutely, you know? Absolutely. Like again, man, tell your wife I said hello and the kids. All right, man, tell everybody I said hello, and I appreciate your time. Man, have a great night, man. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man. I'm a friend. You got me. Use me as you need, man.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Man, I appreciate it. We got 40 seconds left, so I just want to hey, look, if you got anything you want to say now, we got 35 seconds. Hey, I gotta give a shout out to my boy Marcus. All right, I see you. And
I'll shout out to Mizzle Supervision.
Okay.
That's my guy right there. That's family right there.
All right.
Supervision.com.
Yukia, you had a lot of great comments, and Greta as well. I just want to say thank you for you guys watching. Carmen as well. Thank you for watching, Carmen as well. Man, I just appreciate everybody, man. You have a great night. Shayna, thank you.